celebrate Pura Neta Power with us right now, right here. This is my new novel, and it is published by Pochino Press, and it is the long-awaited sequel to my first novel, which was called Barrio Bushido. All right, what a pleasure to have you all here right now, because I am going to share with you the book launch for Pura Neta, which was held on Wednesday, September 30th, 2020. Now, in conjunction with San Francisco Public Library for their Viva Latino Heritage Month celebration, they honored and they celebrated me as their on the same page author. And they introduced me as an author, innovator, an educator, and a loved one, San Francisco Mission District native. Okay, now I was speaking in this video with Luis Rodriguez, his book Always Running. He is an internationally acclaimed Xicanx author, right? And we got into a beautiful dialogue regarding Neta, Vida Loca, mass incarceration, gentrification, educational, economic injustice, poetry, philosophy, feminine, masculine spirits, authentic education, and always, in all ways, all amor. It was beautiful. So I'm sharing this with you because I guarantee you will never have seen two Vida Loca locos in dialogue like this. Please use and share this video for healing and educational purposes. This is especially valuable, and this is unprecedented amor, because in this video, you got a San Fran, Northern Califas, Homey author professor, joined with a respected award-winning Southern California writer, acclaimed author, Luis Rodriguez. Imagination and wisdom are beyond borders. Make-believe walls try to keep us separated and distracted. What's really going on? Writers are the lifeblood of the collective mind. Poets are the pulse, the spirit. Here are two audio writers who intimately live la vida loca and are now harnessing that energy to battle oppression and to create critical amor, right? More than ever, now is the time for our gente to unite for our universal empowerment. All right, please enjoy this video, and it is my honor to share this with you and also to guide you to purchase my book, Pura Neta, through Pochino Press. We'll have the link below. All right, take care and enjoy, everyone. Orale, everyone. Blessings to you all. Thank you, Luis, for joining me here. Blessings and amor to you all.
Well, thank you, brother. Thank you all for being here. I just do want to recognize the Tongva lands that I'm coming from here in Los Angeles, San Fernando Valley, and also want to say hello to all my Xicanx, Mexicanos, Guanacos, Chapines, Catrachos in the Bay Area and throughout the world, man, because I got a lot of family and friends over in the Bay Area, and so I want to say hello to them, but I know we got calls from all over, but I do want to do a shout out for that amazing community there.
I also want to give thanks to the unknown most powerful creator that does not even have a name, you know, right? Beyond words, right? I want to thank you, Luis. I want to thank Pochino Press, San Francisco Public Library, La San Francisco, Portland Street, all of the barrios in San Francisco, Bay Area, and down south as well. Because like this is said, what we're doing right now, I think is a beautiful, unprecedented thing. We are joining North and South barrio literature together, right? And I'm just very humbled to be here in conversation with you. As I said earlier, when we were talking earlier today, that this book right here, right? This is always running, right? And this is, I think, one of like the first edition, okay? This was one of the first books that I taught as a college instructor. And lo and behold, how can it be 20 years later that I'm now here in conversation with this great man right now? So thank you for your blessings. I also want to give a shout out to my familia as well, all my loved ones, homeboys and homegirls, the homeless homies, etc. Gracias.
So I guess when you and me should just have a conversation. That's what I understand, and we're going to talk about your work, brother. But I do want to say something. I want to start with a line by one of my favorite poets, Theodore Rothke, and the line is, "What is madness but the nobility of soul at odds with circumstance?" And the reason why I want to say that is because to me, La Vida Loca, the life of the streets, that was a way to try to reconcile try not to reconcile our soul with the world that was supposedly not mad. You know what I'm saying? The world that was supposedly normal was actually more crazy than the world that we were creating. When we said La Vida Loca, we were just basically saying, we don't want to be you all, but you guys are crazy. This world of racism, police killings, of schools that don't teach you your history, of being knocked down, of not being able to speak Spanish. That was the world I grew up in, and I know you grew up in. And that's where the whole culture evolved. Is where you think you're crazy? You don't know what crazy is. And then La Vida Loca is that because the soul cannot reconcile itself with that world, the capitalist, imperialist world that was created before we even came on. And that I think is important because of your book, but also of everything. There it goes. Yeah, La Vida Loca. And that's what I think it means. People think, well, it means, I'm just going to be crazy. I'm going to shoot anybody I want. I'm going to kill everybody I want. That happened later. That happened because it got thrown into the turmoil. But our original intent, I say our because I was there in the 60s when a lot of the stuff was coming. It actually came out before that, the Pachucos, the 30s and 40s, and it even has indigenous roots. In Mexico and Central America, the roots go deep. It's not just, one spot, it's very deep. It goes back to that whole thinking that we had, that we should be connected. We should be connected to nature. We should be connected to our own nature. We should be connected to the nature of all relationships, and we got to be connected to the divine in our own way, the way we see it. So to me, that was the world that we weren't entering. So to me, La Vida Loca was, now I'm going to take it back. You see what I'm saying? So I want to address that to you because I'd like for you to speak on that, brother, on how La Vida Loca represents for you, because I've seen it. I see it in your book. I see how you express it. By the way, it's a beautiful book, man. Pochino Press, and I know the people that are there, they're great people. And this is beautiful. They did a beautiful job. And why not? We'll just do beautiful books. We don't have to be sloppy. Just make them all beautiful. So this is a wonderful job that they did. And I'm so glad that you all interested in this book because it's not only beautifully done, but the content, the poetry, the story, it's mythology and living mythology. That's what it is, brother. It's living mythology. So I want you to speak a little bit about what it is that why you do what you do. What does La Vida Loca mean to you and how it gets expressed in a book like this?
All right. So hey, thank you so much for asking this fundamental question, brother. And Vida Loca is the root. It's not that the idea of a sickness, right? Because we also had this concept in the 90s of being sick with it, right? Being sick meant being destructive. You were diseased, right? Vida Loca was before that, man. And Vida Loca meant, you know what? There are things we do not understand. There's a spirit world. There is education beyond books. There is There is bravery and courage and destruction and creation, all of it together, man. And it's absurd. And what are you gonna do in the middle of that vida loca, man? Because as you said, Luis, they're trying to teach us, for example, in the schools. I remember when I was growing up, there was a way that you could structure things to be successful. You could, for example, think about how crazy this is. You could manage time. It's insanity, brother. You know what I mean? The Mayans, the Aztecs, they knew there's no way. You know what I mean, right? And so Vida Loca is understanding that there is a rooted natural principle, right? That guides everything, man. That guides the trees, that guides the ocean, that guides our spirit, right? And it was a beautiful thing, because I will say this: if you are embedded in Vida Loca, you feel life. Right? There's a lot of people running away from Vida Loca. They're like, oh no, look, Vida is not loca. Life is structured. Life is 9 to 5. You go and get a job for 40 years, and then you die. You know what I mean? We were like, no, that's not the truth. We knew already by about 12, 13 years old, that's not the truth, Holmes. That's simply not the truth, man. I already know that life is about more than that. So I gotta say, Vida Loca helped me not buy into the lies, because there was more truth in the streets, in las calles, in the nobility and the love that I saw in brothers and sisters, and in teachers trying to make us puppets. And I get it, you know, I'm a teacher now, so you know, they might have had good intentions. Do you get what I'm saying? And so I remember, yeah, there were teachers that might have had good intentions, but good intentions for what? Good intentions for me to be a nice little boy. You get what I'm saying, right? Yeah. And so I was like, no, we were like, no, we're not gonna do that. You know what the repercussions of that was that we were gonna get mass incarcerated. We were gonna get killed, you know, and we accepted that. We did not cry about the danger we were entering into, right? You know what I mean? Well, you know, we did cry later, you know what I'm saying? But we took it, and I will say this: how does Vida Loca factor into Pura Neta and the rest of my life? Is what I've tried to do, with my life. I say this, and I try to mean it. I live what I write, and I write what I live. What I've tried to do is, when I started going to college, right? That was the first time I had gone to really any school since about the 7th grade. You know, right? Once I started going to City College of San Francisco, I used Vida Loca as a vehicle to get critical education. I didn't just sit there, man. I was like, you know what? I got a duty to my homies. I'm supposed to be in here starting some problems. I'm supposed to be in here doing some work, man. And you know, it doesn't matter if we're outnumbered. If I'm the only one that looks like me, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna go be who I gotta be, and I'm gonna go explore the craziest analyses of literature that I can. You know, so that's partially how I've tried to use Vida Loca in an educational setting, and in my writing too. But I know we're gonna talk more about that as we go along, brother.
But let me just add, I mean, that's powerful, man, because this is a philosophical, people don't think that indigenous people, that brown-skinned people have philosophy. We had them before anybody else brought it over. We were already cosmological. We already had thoughts and ideas. We had a very grounded understanding of the world, and it was trying to take it away from us, destroying the books, the books that were, you know, the mate paper books, destroying the temple, destroying everything they could, trying to overwhelm it with other cultures that were not our culture, that were, like you point out, was patriarchal, was linear, was very much what I would call the masculine energy devoid of the feminine, because indigenous people never did that. The feminine was the first energy. It was the primary energy, but you need masculine. But they turned it around. Masculine rules everything. You're pragmatic, you're practical. You got to take bottom line, you know, take care of business, all the world that we grow into. Because even in the barrio, we weren't into that. Believe it or not, to me, we understood both the feminine and masculine. People think we didn't, but we did. We understood how it all interacted. Being local for me was just like, I ain't gonna fall. I'm gonna deal with this world on my terms. Because what was the alternative? You be quiet, you don't rock no boats, you accept the pain. I couldn't do that. Now, here's what happened though. That's a sad thing, but it's part of the truth. They brought in, we didn't do this. They brought in guns, heroin, later on other drugs. They brought in a lot of things to undermine that revolutionary, rebellious spirit. They knew that we were from the Pachuco days all the way on down, you know, they knew it. They did everything they could, but I don't think they destroyed it, nor do I think they stopped it. Some of us, well, I was a heroin addict. I was in the streets. I shot people. People shot at me. I was in the warfare, but I also was given this imagination by the Chicano activists of those days who came to my barrio and started working with people like me. Now, I'm probably the only one that paid attention, but I loved it. It saved my life to know there's struggle, there's social justice, there's change. I was taken by it. I didn't stop living La Vida Loca. I just changed it into the world of how we're going to change this world. I'm still local. If that's how we want to put it, I'm still local. But now I'm doing it like you say. I'm fighting the system in my way. I'm using my poetry. I mean, the arms for me aren't guns and knives. I don't even have any more guns. I had a lot of guns. I got rid of all of them. Me and my son did 15 years in prison. He ain't got no gun. We ain't got no guns, but guess what? We're still armed. We're armed with ideas. We're armed with poetry. We're armed with song. We do mexica. We do danza. We do all these things. That's how we're dealing with it. So I just wanted to express that because I think that's what you're pointing out. We got to reclaim what it always was and what it still is with us now.
Yes, brother. And you know, growing up in the 60s and 70s, you experienced all of that poison that they were bringing in. And this book, as you know, brother, what happens is by the year 2010, 2012, when the beginning of the story takes place, they've used all that attempted destruction to make us bad guys, bad people, so that they have an excuse and a justification to kick us out.
Yeah.
And then the gentry come in. We got to understand that idea of gentrification. The root is from this word called gentry, which is related to nobility and royalty, right? Yeah. And so gentrification is, you got, suppose this is our barrio, right? And then all of a sudden the gentry comes in, the royalty, and they're like, you primitive savages don't know what you're doing with this land right here. You know what I mean? We are your saviors. We are your saviors. And what specific idea is it that they said is our savior? In the 18th century in San Fran Mission, that's when it was built, right? Mission Dolores, well, it was a creek, was Dolores, Arroyo de Dolores, was the missionaries with Jesus, right? With God, right? Okay. In the year 2010, the rhetoric that they're using, the gospel that they're using to justify our attempted extermination is technology. They're like, technology is efficient. You all, what are you doing? You're barbecuing on the streets? You know what I mean? You're having danzas, etc. You know what? That's not the best way to use this property. And so they actually used gang injunctions, they used demonization of both brown and black people to justify them coming in. And then all of a sudden, because you experienced it, all of the property, 60s and 70s, is not valued to them. But then they want to make believe a number. In the property in the Mission District in the 1970s, those houses were on average worth $30,000 per home. The dirt is the same dirt. Exactly. The wood is the same wood in the house. How can it be that that house is now worth $2 million? It's an imagination by the gentry. The gentry comes in, and then guess what? They push us out, man. They push us out, right? So this is a story about La San Fran Mission and what people have done to fight against racism economic, educational injustice, right? And also against police brutality and police killing.
So I my body was also gentrified, you know. And
Right?
you can imagine when just so you know, in the 60s and 70s when I was there, it was one of the poorest neighborhoods in the whole country. There was 100 migrant communities in the San Gabriel Valley. There were dirt roads. There were no sidewalks. Chickens and goats in people's backyards, graffiti everywhere. There was little shacks. I got pictures of it. People said, this looks like Appalachia or the South. I go, it was, yeah, but it was worse because it was all dense. There was muddy when the rains came. All the roads were muddy. But we were surrounded by white suburbs. So you could see the difference. One thing, if you're in Appalachian, that's all there is. That's all you know. If you're in the deep South, but man, when you're surrounded by people with sidewalks and strip malls and nice homes and everything else and restaurants, you can see, wait a minute, what's up with this? We're the Mexicans and we're treated this way. Here are the white people. And I'm not talking about poor white people. There was 2 or 3 poor white families in my barrio. And guess what? They were homies. We didn't hate them because they were white. They spoke Spanish just like us. They were homies. They lived in the neighborhood. I'm talking about the class gentry you're talking about, that class nature of I got money and power. And so they used the LA sheriffs as their army. We were at war. I was at war. I didn't have to go to Vietnam. You know how many homies went to Vietnam, but they tried to get me when I was in jail. They said, why don't you sign up for Vietnam? And then we'll get all the charges off. I go, I ain't going to Vietnam. I'm already at war. I don't need to be at war there. I'm like Muhammad Ali. You know, why am I fighting these brown-skinned people over there when I'm the brown-skinned here and the people here are the one messing with me? Because the sheriff's deputies, they killed 4 of my best friends. And this is in the 60s, dude. In other words, it never died, even if it got worse by now, even if it's gotten bigger. We were living that life. There were 4 of my friends killed by cops and unarmed. I'm not talking about the vatos that were going crazy trying to shoot somebody. I'm talking about the dudes that just happened to be unarmed. The cops killed them. They were my best friends. They're gone. So I had carried that pain too. It was like, well, I'm already at war. I don't need to go to another war. The one good thing about being given an imagination and a vision is what something you just said. You realize that the world that we're in, that is so big and strong, mortgages, your wages, pain, all these things, they're all illusions.
Yes.
They're all illusions. They're made up. But we think they're everything. Yeah. I know. Even the mass incarceration is an illusion system. Yes, it's real. Yes. People are dying because of it, but it's all made up. They made up how it works, who gets in there, how they set it up. They made up all the laws so there will be more lawless people. The more laws you make, the more lawless you're going to be. You know what I'm saying? Yes. They find all kinds of ways to hurt, kill, or incarcerate people. They just make it all up. White supremacy is all made up thing. There's no such thing as white supremacy. There's no such thing as white nationalism. Yes, there's people proclaiming it, but the root of it is nothing. They're proclaiming it. They're setting it up. They're the militias sitting there with armed and everything else. But it's like, but you're fighting for something that doesn't exist. You have to make stuff up, and then you got to make it seem like it's not made up, and everything I am is made up. I said, no. And this is what we're addressing. And I think you're addressing in the book, because with their story, especially around the gentrification and everything, you're also pointing out that we're not losing the seeds that have been planted and with us since our ancestors. We're still carrying those seeds. You know, in Mexico and Central America, a lot of those countries, close to 95% of the people were killed within 50 years of Spanish and Portuguese coming in those lands. 95%, that's a genocide beyond genocide. But guess what? That 5% that lasted, that's us, bro. The ones that kept living, that kept at it. And then we're in the barrios, and some of us are still fighting that long range war. So I always tell like my son and anybody, my son's clean and sober, he's crime free, no longer involved with all that stuff. But I tell him, whatever you do, because he's always having issues with rage, getting triggered. He has issues with, you know, people not understanding. I go, but whatever you do, just think, what will be worthy of our ancestors? The ones that didn't make it, that died, and we're still here. What will be worthy of that 5% that kept living to renew everything we were about? Because that's what we're doing. We're trying to renew and reweave the world that used to be our world before it got invaded. But now we got to do it under these terms, under the world that we're living now.
Yes, spirit matters most.
Absolutely.
It's not intellect, it's not logic, Absolutely. It's none of that. It's spirit matters most, brother. And since you brought up the issue of mass incarceration, I want to talk about something that happens in the book in chapter 6. It's on page 134, right? And that chapter is called Cartoon Visits Lobo at San Quentin Inca, right? And so Cartoon, the homie, has been gone on an educational odyssey. He comes back after 20 years, man, because Lobo had commanded him, go get an education, young blood, right? And he comes back and he finds out his mentor, Lobo, is in La Pinta for the rest of his life, right? And he has a discussion about how conscious, if he's conscious of what's happening. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to read a little bit about that because you brought up some beautiful points, Luis, that I think are addressed here. So, brother, Cartoon knew he too was supposed to have been behind the other side of the bulletproof glass. Don't you feel used like a pawn? Cartoon had to engage because he too had read many books and thought about this matter deeply in all the years he had been away. Of course, I'm a fucking pawn. Bobo was upset at the stupid question that required him to confess the stupid answer. I'm the capital for one of the most profitable money-making institutions in modern history, prisons. Man, before they had gente picking cotton or coffee or lettuce. But now they don't even need our muscles, Holmes. They just throw us in these cages where we play dominoes and spades while they cash in on our spirits. My actual body is their capital, their profit. I feed the guards, lawyers, and judges children and educate them through college so they can then become the lawyers that lock all of our asses up. Bobo laughed, his brown, bald head glistening with sweat. Come on, man. California Prison Guard Union is the strongest prison union in the world. They ain't here to guard us from society. They're here to protect their investment. Me.
Yeah. Pura neta, bro. Pura neta.
So,
that's the truth.
That's Pura Neta.
Exactly.
That's what, if you want to read, this is for because you've already read it, Luis, you know, and it's not really a plug, but, you know, my whole life is dedicated to just spreading love and consciousness, man. And so, you know, if you want to read more about what's happening, man, but in a fictional and an honest manner, then please come check out this book. Buy this book, man. You know, teach this book. Pura Neta, man. Please, Luis.
Yeah, and you know what? I really appreciate you bringing that up. As you know, I've been going to the Pintas for 40 years. And I did that because, you know, I was in and out of jails as a youth. I was in juvenile hall. I was in 2 adult facilities. I got convicted. I'm an ex-offender. Well, formerly incarcerated. Offender is not the right word. But I did stop all that. And, you know, when I was 20 years old and my oldest son, Ramiro, was born, I made a promise. I'm never going back to that craziness. I'm never going back to that craziness, to the prisons, to the heroin. I quit heroin in jails and everything. I just wasn't going to go back. But I couldn't forget the homies, man. Meaning my homies were all getting caught up. I couldn't forget the raza, the gente that was stuck in these cages. So about 25 years old, after I worked in industry, I worked in a steel mill, I learned a lot of skills, you know, pipe fitting, welding, you know, mechanics. I gave that up to become a journalist. Just like you went to school and you went and got your education. I gave up all that to just, I'm going to be a writer, man. And I did that. And I started going to my first writing workshops in Chino prison in 1980. I was a reporter for San Bernardino Sun, and they gave me an opportunity to come in there to teach creative writing, and I did. I've been going to prisons ever since, and I've been doing poetry readings, I've been doing talks, healing circles, but also teaching creative writing. I've been at Lancaster Prison now since 2007, 13 years now, teaching there, and this is the high security level for prison. And so you see all the vatos, I see homies, because in every prison, some homie of mine is in the prison. So in California, there are a few of them. You see them everywhere I go. They're there. So I've been to San Quintin. I've been to Folsom. I've been to Soledad. I've been to all these other places. The press. When I go to Lancaster, some of those guys remember me from 10, 15 years ago when I visited those other institutions. Hey, I was in your class then. I go, orale. Yeah, okay, good. I've been doing it so long. But I find that to be important. And it's not because I want to teach them how to write while they're in prison. I'm an abolitionist. We got to completely get rid of the whole prison system, mass incarceration. But as long as I'm in there, I'm trying to give them the keys to liberation that they need now. And that's the imagination. That's their art. That's their gifts. That's their genius. Give it to them now. They don't have to be in prison even when the bars are big and the razor wires everywhere. Just like all the dudes who are outside who think they're free, but they're in prisons in their own mind. They got addictions. They got rage issues. They got, people are out here all in some kind of prison and don't know it. At least the guys in the Pinta know they're in prison and they know they have to figure out a way to deal with that. So I'm giving them, here's the keys to liberation while you're here in your cell. Be imaginative, be creative, write, tell your story, man. Get out. Some of those guys are amazing performance poets, man. They just come up and rattle things out of their words and mind. Like, oh, let's shape that, bro. Let's work with it. So I got a class where it's all black and brown. That's what it is. And people say, well, black and brown can't get along. They're all good in my class, bro. They're all, and you know what? And I don't mind saying it, Norteño, Sureño, everybody that comes to my class, they're there to learn. Nobody fights. Everybody respects each other. They got protocols. They respect me. I respect them. That's what holds the whole place together. And we don't get into any pleitos about nothing, but we talk issues. We talk hard stuff. We talk about pain, talk about trauma. We talk about the things that people have done. We talk about how to restore, how to transform, all these great things. So to me, that's why I do what I do. And I'm also out in the streets and I'm also organizing to get rid of the whole mass incarceration system completely. Because it's completely wrong. Because people don't recognize that crime is also a made-up thing.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. That's just a way to oppress poor people even more, bro.
Yeah. So they, in my video, they didn't give you much of a choice. You either accepted poverty or you went to crime. That's the way it was. And if you didn't want to accept poverty, I can't make a living. I can't get a job. I'm gonna do something. Those aren't the only choices. But those were the only ones they give us. And then, of course, we're okay with going to the Pinta. Nobody was scared of going to the Pinta. We all accepted it. We're okay if we die, bullets come get us. We're okay if we have a heroin overdose. That's part of life. I go, no, that is not life. That's something else. That's somebody else's plan that many of us bought into. We played ourselves, some of us, but not everybody did. And we still can be liberated through the arts, creativity, through writing, through the power. This is why this is powerful. Because it shapes the world the way we want to do it. If the world isn't gonna give us the tools to shape, to do things that they want to do and how they want to do it, we shape it ourselves.
Yes.
We make our way in this world. We set up our own ways of doing, our own economies, our own social structures. And it's gotta be based on something that all indigenous people, because I always go to the indigenous because that's our root. We might have Spanish and a bunch of colonial Anglo assimilation. We got a lot of things, but I go my deepest root is the indigenous in this land.
Yes.
And they knew one thing. Everything they did was for the shared well-being of everybody. That should be what we all aim for. And if we read the Bible, if you read the Quran, if you read Buddhist texts, if you read anything, they all are trying to say the same thing. The shared well-being of everybody is what should be our heritage. And that's what we should struggle for, organize for, fight for, do whatever we got to do to make sure that happens.
Yes, brother. Thank you so much for blessing us with that wisdom. Bro. And I do want to say something just about the name, man, because you were talking about imagination and creativity, right? So think about the imagination here. Pura Neta is street Spanglish for pure truth, but this is a book of fiction. So it's already a paradox.
Yeah.
How can fiction be the truth? In the book, I'm trying to say that, you know what, man? Truth is not just this thing called truth. Yeah. It is both truth and imagination.
Absolutely.
Equals truth, man.
Absolutely.
Right? And something more that you talked about is just the beauty of writing and also reading, because that if you want to be a writer, you got to read too, man. Because what happens when you read, is you start stealing, man.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Yeah,
Everybody
that's
steals.
what you're supposed to do, Holmes.
Everybody takes from it.
You steal and share, right? So I would like to actually read a little bit about the power of reading. And this one comes from a character, his name is Cartoon, and it's on page 57, right? And he writes about what do you get out of reading, right? And he says this: by reading, I stole style.
Mhm.
Reading, I've come to believe, is the key to consciousness. When reading, you gotta shut the fuck up and listen. Who do you listen to? What do you listen to? Not even you know, because that voice that enters into your brain is not your voice. You simulate a song of someone you ain't never met. You mimic an accent that slurs in your mute mind. You imagine something that cannot possibly be true, yet you listen. And to do that, you must be disciplined, attentive, and creative. Crazy. A cartoon. To practice the skill of reading, you must be confident in your own nothingness. The denser the text, the more complicated and paradoxical the words, the more you must question yourself and your own consciousness. It's a time of dangerous peace and safety that forces you to confront and construct your reality based on someone else inside of your mind. Will you be bullied? Will you submit? Will you find patience and humility to listen to someone besides yourself? Are you exciting to entertain another brain inside of your brain? A taboo point to proclaim: reading is the most magical message.
Man, that is so powerful. I want to emphasize again what you just said. Um, I was fortunate as a young man that I love to read books. And people say, well, how can you in the barrio, no books? Nobody loved books in my family. Nobody loved books in the barrio. That grabbed me. I didn't know English. I learned English by TV and reading. When the books, remember they used to have those books, I don't know if you used to have it when you were a kid, those books that you can buy them in school. And they would give you a list, and I would mark them on my mama, pobrecita. My mama would say, no podemos, no es mucho, no podemos comprar libros, no tenemos para libros. And I would convince her, and she would, okay, uno está bien. Okay, so I would always get one little book. But you know what? That was changed my mind. And when I was on heroin, homeless in the streets of downtown LA, and I had a 22 handgun to bug people. I just the way to survive, and I came across the Central Public Library, man. And I walked in there and I thought, whoa, there's books here, man. A lot of homeless people were there just to clean up, maybe to rest. But man, I spent hours there, man. It was my refuge. I read Malcolm X. I read James Baldwin. I read Ray Bradbury. I read Charles Webb. I read everything, bro. And you know what? That's what you're saying. That gets you thinking, because books never beat me up. Books never told me I never amount to anything. Books never knocked me down. Books were always my friends. You know what I mean? In a world that you could die if you make the wrong move. I used to I never slept with anybody or any group. They always invited me. I didn't trust nobody. I always slept in a different place every night, down along the LA River, abandoned cars, abandoned buildings, wherever I could sleep. Never with anybody. I didn't trust nobody. During the day, I hang with them. I'll shoot up with people, but I didn't want to fucking be. But you know what? The books were my saving grace. And that's what eventually got me to think, maybe I could write books. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Maybe I could do it, bro. I mean, it has to be just all these other people. So I really believe what you're saying is powerful. That's is why I believe that they don't allow books and education in our schools. Guess what? There's no bookstores in the barrio. There isn't in LA. You go to South Central, go to East LA, go to the West Side, go to Fernando Valley, the Northwest side, the Mexican, Central American side of the valley. There's no bookstores except what me and my wife created. We created a bookstore here for 500,000 people. The Tia Chucha Centro Cultural and bookstore. It's the only bookstore for 500,000 people. Of course, we have arts, we have workshops, we have danza, we have films. We are the only movie house in Hollywood, the entertainment capital of the world. We got no movie houses here. So we have to create those spaces. We have to create those bookstores. We have to say to people, you need this knowledge, get it. We got to provide it for them. So that's why I love what you had to say, because I'm honored to have been part of creating the space that's been around for 20 years now. And just by, so you know, me and my wife started it. My wife ran it for 17 years. 2 years ago, we turned it over to all these young people. Some of them came out of high school with no sense of nothing. They stayed with us. Now they're in their late 20s, 30s, mid 30s, late 30s, and now they're running it. 8 staff people, they're running it. It's in their hands. Me and my wife don't do it day by day. We're still there. We're still helping. She's on the board, and I do whatever I can to help. But it's in their hands. We turned it over to them, and it's going beautifully, man. And that's what I think is what you're saying. That spirit, you're saying that spirit has to be. Look at, there's spirit in everything, and there's a spirit in life, and there's a spirit in revolution, and there's a spirit in change, and there's a spirit in books, and their spirit is everything that infuses everything. They're not just material things you can touch. Everything that you can touch has spirit imbued in it. And we have to bring it out, draw it out, just like everybody else's spirit has to be drawn out. So thank you, brother, for that. And I appreciate you too for reading, because I think what I was saying, this is living mythology, because exactly what you said. This is the truth that fiction can tell. Fiction is made up, but guess what? There's truth all throughout it.
Yes.
And that's what people gotta, mythology is like that. Mythology is made up stories, but they carry the truths of our times, of our, what messages and metaphors and whatever we need to understand how to live, when to live, what's happening ahead of us. That's what you're doing. You're giving us a roadmap, and you're giving us the truth through these characters and these situations. So, I mean, you're living mythology, man.
Thank you so much for that, brother. And you know what, just gotta talk a little bit about the cover, man, because check out, that is a rendition by a beautiful homeboy, Mateo Leon Valencia. He likes to call himself Mero Mero, but just a little bit. This is our San Fran culture right here, man. This is the Bay Area culture, right? This is Frida Kahlo Katrina, right? And one of the characters, Maricela, that's her Shiro, right? And look, so Pura Neta, she's all sassy, she's down, but she's dead, Holmes. She's dead, right? Because that is the truth, and it's an imagination. Death is a truth and an imagination, because we all believe we're gonna die. I think we all know we're gonna die, but we have absolutely no idea what the hell that means, man. Anything we've ever thought about death, it's just pure imagination, man. So here she is with the lowrider bomba in the back, right on Balmy Alley in La San Fran Mission, man. You know, right? And you know, I just gotta say that, you know, this kind of spirit permeates throughout the book as well, man. And you said something earlier about feminine and masculine spirits, right? And I wanted to touch a little bit on that, bro, because, you know, in the late 1980s and 1990s, because mass incarceration was in full swing at that time, right? All of my homies, my brother was in the pen, we were getting killed on the street, et cetera, right? And we made up this bullshit, right? The media is feeding this to us. Films are feeding this to us. You know, gangster rap is feeding us. We're supposed to be overly macho, right? And, you know, calling women the B words, etc. When only 10 years earlier, they were so romantic, man. We love the soul oldies, etc., right? But we always knew, and the character Lobo talks about this later on in the book. I was just fronting, man. We always knew there was a feminine spirit, man. We always loved that feminine spirit. Had more power in many ways than we did. We had to try to protect ourselves, man, because we knew we knew that we were going to get killed, that we were going to go to prison. And if you did not fall in love, then that meant, you know what, then I won't be weak when I'm in La Pinta, man.
No.
Right? So, I did want to say a little bit about that because we got some feminine characters in the book as well. La Misión. I personified her and made her into La Misión de Dolores.
Yeah.
Made her into a female character, man. And she
right.
tells the story, the history of San Francisco, specifically La Misión de Dolores, man.
Yeah. So building on that, man, this is a very important thing. I will tell you a story. It's in my new book of essays. I don't mind telling you, man. I was a tough dude, man. I would fight everybody. You couldn't mess with me. I was arrested. I did a lot of drugs and stole, but really what I got arrested for was for shooting people, stabbing people, for trying to fight with cops. I was on murder's row when I was 16. I took on everybody. But guess what? When I was a little kid, I was a sensitive, imaginative kid. I really loved being in the corner, playing with my army men, my trucks. I didn't want anyone to go outside. My brother was like, come on, let's go play outside. They were always playing dirt clod fights with trash can lids and everything. And you know what, man, I just want to be in my, people made fun of me, like, hey, what's wrong with him? That's not what a boy should do, go out there and everything. And I'll tell you a story. When I was 9 years old, my neighbor was a little girl about 8. She was playing dolls on the porch. And she invited me over to play dolls. I didn't think twice about it. I'd been playing dolls with my sisters. I didn't care. I was in my imagination. So I'm playing dolls with her, two of the little toughies, same age as me, 9 years old, but they were walking by, they looked at me, oh, they snickered, they went walking. The next day, I got hell for it, man. The kids in school were making fun of me. They called me things I never even heard of. Faggot? What's that? I don't know. And even Spanish is even worse. The Spanish words, they go like, oh my God. And then they beat the hell out of me in front of everybody. They knocked me down. I was on the ground. That's how I have a jaw. They cracked my jaw. I didn't break it, but they caused it growth. That's why even to this day, I only got 3 places my teeth meet. I never fixed it. I was called Chin for my barrio. That's exactly right. Because the gang embraced the deformity. Everybody made fun of me. They said, call me monkey. I looked ugly. Only the gang embraced it. But what happened, I don't want to call it gang, it was the barrio, it was my homies. It was a different thing. But what happened is when I was on the ground at 9 years old, I made a promise. I would never again be knocked down by anybody ever. And you know what that did? That was powerful, but it was also a mutation. I stopped being that sensitive kid. I stopped crying. I stopped having an imagination. I just became all about, I'm gonna take you on. You're gonna mess with me? I'm gonna mess with you 10 times worse. I just became this kind of a mad, and I don't mean mad in the sense of what we're talking about. I'm talking about a fractured, distorted, mutated young man. The idea that some people were saying, this is what a man is. So I've had to spend my whole life after 7 years of drug heroin and then 20 years of drinking. Now I've recovered. I've got 27 years sobriety this year. Same years that I was on drugs and alcohol. Now I'm finding 27 years. And guess what? I found my sensitivity again. I found my imagination again. I found my feminine again. You know what I mean? I'm finding on a higher level. I'm writing. This is to me totally infused with feminine because it's imaginative. It's got emotion, it's got emotional value, it's got stories, but it comes from a place of the heart. That's what makes this story powerful. And so I wanted to say how even in my life, it turned out to be the right thing. My wife always tells me, she's the one that teaches me these things. She says, the feminine is the first energy, it's the leading energy, it's the constant. The masculine is the variable, it's needed, it's secondary, it's important. You can't do one without the other. But you got to remember the feminine, and even more than that, as you go towards the masculine, when you do things, when you get things done, when you start shaping things, when you do practical things, don't forget the feminine has to be weaved in there. Don't lose the feminine. Don't just go from feminine imagination to now masculine, let's take care of business. You got to weave that feminine all the way through.
I just want to give you an embrace, brother. Damn,
yeah, brother.
Man, that's
yeah,
so much love. Man, this is so much wisdom that you're throwing down to us. I'm so humbled and so appreciative of this, man. Yeah. And this is so beautiful, bro, that we have this conversation. Yeah. And you know what? We're talking barrio love, brother.
That's what it is.
Barrio love, bro. And you know what? North, south, bro. We're together like this.
Yeah.
You know what? We're human beings. Somos
Yeah.
indios, bro.
Eso.
Somos
Somos.
indios. Together,
Somos.
bro.
We are. We got to do it.
And brother, I'll say something about that because that word is used in the book, indio, right?
Yeah.
I gotta say, I understand that in Latin America,
It's a put down.
That is a derogatory term,
It is.
bro.
It's a put down.
Yeah, it's a put down. But you know what, bro? I embrace that, man. I'm not gonna let that strip away my natural roots and identity, bro. You know what I mean? You know, I feel it. I felt it through my father, through my brother. May he rest in peace. Through the streets.
Everybody,
everybody, like you said earlier, bro. And see, this is the thing. God bless them, bro. You know what I mean? And I don't want to stereotype all white people like this, right? Yeah. But white people are indigenous too,
absolutely.
Bro. You know what I mean? Many times people forget their indigenous natures, bro.
Yeah.
That is a horror story.
Yeah.
When that happens, bro. Because then you don't know really who you are, man.
No, you have no roots. And therefore people can make up stuff like you're white. White is nothing. There's no place called, there's no white land. No, I mean, I get it. If you're Celtic, if you're from Ireland, if you're from Spain, you got beautiful cultures in Spain. If you're from, and I don't mean the Spanish conquistadors, I'm talking about the cultures. If you're from Germany, there's, I got friends. I got a sobrina in Germany. She married a German guy. She loves Germany. She's a dark India from La Ciudad de Mexico. She's, you know, but she loves it. It's like, hey man, the world doesn't divide by nations. Only human beings do. Yes. And I'm not saying that we're not a nation, but we don't have the border. The borders are made up. The earth accepts all of us. It is. It's another illusion that's been set up, and we're all falling for it. And we can't now. And I gotta have a passport. I gotta go from one place to the other. But it's like, but the earth accepts us, welcomes us. Doesn't care if you've been in the Pinta. Doesn't care if you've been at Tecate. Doesn't care what country you're from, what color skin you're from. Doesn't care if you're trans or you're queer or you're not. The point is, it accepts all of us, doesn't it? When you walk the earth, it doesn't spit you out. It doesn't say, "Hey, you can't walk here, bro." No, we walk it and it embraces us. Where is that country? Where is that land? Where is that world? Not in the society of capitalism and imperialism that was made up, and now we're all living under this made-up illusion that's actually hurting and killing us. Look at that pandemic. Look at all the stuff that they've created. The madness is not in the body; it's in them. They're the craziest mad people because they created a whole world that's all totally off, and they're pushing it on us. I heard that debate last night. Madness, bro. They're crazy from both ends. And again, I'm not. If people want to vote for Biden because they don't like Trump, all power to you. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm not saying anything. But I'm looking at both of them, and I know Trump is totally fucking nuts. But I'm taking a look at. But the answer that they got isn't any less mad. It's the same kind of madness they're both caught up into, and we have to be able to say, let's have another way of thinking, of living, of imagining, another alignment. We can't align with that. And again, that's okay if you're going to vote for that. That's strategy. Do what you got to do. I'm not arguing anybody about what they got to do, but I'm talking about another alignment, another way of living and thinking, the way that we used to live and think, not this way.
Hey, brother, and I just want to say something about the book. At the end of the book, by the end of the book, what the homie, when he goes to go visit him in prison, what they decide to do together is not to recruit young homies to be gang members.
Right.
They go and they decide, you know what we need, you know what's actually necessary. What we need for our own gente is we need amor action in the barrio, man. Right, and you know how amor action, how they portray it in the book is, you know what? Go help an abuelita with her bags, home.
Sure, of course.
You know, go low ride and give hella love to all the people that are out there. Go do poetry. Right next to the murals.
That's right.
Right there. You know what I'm saying, right?
That's right.
And you know, give love every single day. Buy a beer for a homeless homie. That's what he needs, man. You know what I mean, right? Go buy a slice of pizza, right? The solutions, okay, not to say that we don't have big problems, but we make reality too complicated. And reality is right now, Holmes.
Yeah.
We're in reality right now, man. And you know what? The best thing we can offer is authentic energy.
That's what
the
it
most
is.
Powerful energy that we got is amor, bro.
That's right.
Amor, man. You know,
that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's La Vida Loca. That's authenticity. That's being present. I understand there's some questions. So I know we don't got too much time. So maybe we can get some of the questions.
Okay.
And
Sure.
the one that I see is from L. Friedland. It says in 2012, after Barrio Bushido came out,
Yeah.
Senor Bac Sierra said at a reading that he had invented a new genre, that of a more literary form of urban fiction featuring homeboys and homegirls, a new mythology. 8 years later, does he still think he's the sole writer of this genre of fiction? Are there others he would recommend besides perhaps Senor Rodriguez? Well, here's what I would say. Everybody should create their own genre.
Yes.
Everybody that writes, like for example, I have friends that say, "Hey, I like your writing. I want to write like you." I said, "Don't write like me, bro." I mean, I should be the only one doing that. I had a Chicano guy in Guadalajara at the book fair there complain, and he didn't know I was in the audience, that one of his professors told him, "Why don't you write a book like Always Running?" And he was pissed off. He go, "I don't want to write a book like Always Running, I want to write my book." And I got up and I told him, "Bro, that's why we fought in the Chicano movement and all the movimientos, so that you would write like me. No, so you can write your way, your style, you're putting it together, create new genres, forge new ways." And look, that's what I would say. Don't write like me, for crying out loud. I'm the only one that can barely get to write like me. I can barely do it myself. So the idea being that you create your own style, create your own impact. And so I think you're doing this. This is an innovative, imaginative, completely new style. That is true. But again, other people are doing they're creating their own styles. It's coming forward, and that's important, so that we encourage people to create their own styles. But there's nobody going to write like Benjamin Bac Sierra. Nobody. You're the only one that does this, and that's the way it should be. So I would say let's encourage that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, brother. But I'm trying to push the envelope. Look at writing in a new way, right? And we haven't even been able to talk about this, Luis. Luis, you already know this, man. I am integrating and interweaving both regular prose and poetry into a coherent story.
Yeah, exactly.
I got the idea one night after too many shots of tequila, bro. I was like, damn, I got a whole bunch of poetry here. I got a bunch of stories. Man, maybe I could and essays, I got nonfiction writing, etc. Maybe I could just kind of jumble them, jambalaya. And that's what I did, man. Right? That's what I try to do. And so sometimes the characters will speak using stanza style poetry, man.
I saw that, and I go, man, that's right. That's exactly right. And therefore, it's got rhythm, its own rhythm. It's got its own timing. It develops its own winding way to get to a story and get you into it. So to me, that's powerful. And you got some, besides the fact that you're an authentic vato, you're also educated. And that's powerful. That means, you're bringing in knowledge from a lot of other cultures, literature, whatever it is, but you're making it your own. And so I would say that's important. There is another question here, and maybe what steps do you think about getting published and how to get published? And I don't know, you might want to be able to say, I would say that there's a lot of ways to go. I would try all of them, whatever speaks to you. I got published, I did my first book myself. I even typeset it myself. I just did it myself, bro. I was like, hey, you know what? Nobody wanted to publish me. I was sending stuff out. Nobody, you know what? I did it myself. That book made a splash. I was in Chicago. I was part of the slam poetry scene. I was going around selling books out of my trunk of my car. I used to sell other stuff out of the trunk of my car. Now I'm selling my books that I created. And then that's what started Untitled Press. Because then other poets come to you, can you do my book? I started doing all the slam poets in Chicago, and then I started doing other people. And then we started moving. And now I got like 80 books from people from all over the country. And I didn't just leave it to our gente. I got a lot of good raza in my collection, but I got African Americans, I got Japanese Americans, I got Native Americans, I got Irish Americans. I got wherever I loved, I published. So that's one thing. You can do yourself, but there's also a lot of other publishing. I know with like Pochino Press, there are small publishers. They're good. This is as good as any. So consider that. If you look at small publishers, small Untitled Press is small. There's others. They do good books. My books are beautiful. Just like that's why I like the artistry of the book. There's a lot of them out there. If you don't want to do it that way, there's medium-sized, there's university presses, there's other presses, there's medium-sized presses. I've been published by all of them, by the way. And I also got the big boys. Simon & Schuster did Always Running, and HarperCollins did my novel and short story collection. I got the big boys behind me. Can I say one is better than the other? No, you want the big boys because they have great distribution. The books get out everywhere. That's a good thing. But they got so many books, and I got to pay attention to you like a small publisher might. So you got to take that into account. So I would say whatever works for you, do that. If you got to do it yourself just to make an opening, do that, and then try others. Now I got the whole world I can get published by, you know, and I still go to small presses because I think they will take care of my book better than a big one. That's just a decision I make. But I still got big publishers too, you know. So I think that's the goal. There's a lot of ways to go. There's online publishers. There's a lot of things that people can do to get published.
One recommendation that I would have, or a few recommendations, is, hey man, you're published all the time, man. With all this, you know, the Hagakuri, it's a book, Japanese text, and I'm just doing it right here. Hagakuri says, you know what? Whenever you write any word, what you do is you make those the most beautiful words that you can write. As if you write as if somebody is going to hang that writing up on their wall. So if we're talking about publication, whenever you text somebody, whenever you do a social media posting, start a blog, a website, and just write, man. And you will learn your skills, etc., and you will be out there, man. You know, I'm going back to what we talked about earlier, Luis. Spirit matters most, man. So just write what your heart and spirit tell you to do, man.
And you know, I do that with the guys in the Pinta. I mean, are these guys not writers? Aren't they creative? Aren't they geniuses? They are. And so I tell them the same thing. And so there's one question here. Somebody wanted to know whether I was going to do a follow-up to my book, Hearts and Hands. Hearts and Hands is one of my most important books. It's a book that summarizes how to work with young people and our world away from the way that the systemic world that we set up is not doing it. I wrote it a long time ago, about the 30 some years I did working with gang kids, with kids in the jails and juvenile halls. And I was challenging the whole system idea that now everybody's doing. Now everybody's talking this stuff. So Hearts and Hands is pertinent now more than ever. My son, you know, my Ramiro, he says it's his favorite book of mine. Because he says, Dad, you wrote about this stuff before anybody else did. I don't think I did. But the point is, I think that book should be read by more people. Hearts and Hands comes from Gualique, comes from the mother energy, the feminine energy that Mexicas put out there, the energy feminine that was the whole universe, Gualique, and she had hearts and hands on her imagery. And I use it as that's how you mentor and teach and guide young people. You use your heart, you connect with them at this level. And then you use your hand to guide them, to teach them, to give them skills, give them resources. Well, when I was mentored out of the gang life, I don't mean the body or life, I mean the gang craziness, heroin. It was by a guy who didn't try to save me. I wasn't saved by him. He gave me the skills, knowledge, connections, and tools I needed to save myself. That's how you do it. You give young people what they need. You save yourself. You make your way. And that's what I think Hearts and Hands is about. So I do hopefully recommend that people read it. I did reprinted it, and it's been out there. We might do a follow-up because now things are changing so fast. I'm prepared to keep writing. I'm 66 years old, man. I'm 66 years young. I'm sober now, 27 years. My health is better than it's ever been. And so I'm like, you know, dude, I was telling you earlier before we got on that I'm jump roping, man. I'm doing jump rope. 66, I used to be amateur boxer. That's what I did. Now I'm jump roping every morning, and that keeps me going. So my thing is, we still could be strong. We still could be sharp. All those diseases and things are diseases of this society, this world, and we can fight it by trying to be whole and healed and strong in ourselves. Keep that energy, keep that spirit strong, and the rest of it will follow.
Oh man, thank you so much, man. This is game. This is game. Gracias, bro. Gracias, man. You know, so you know, I see one right now. What's your favorite oldie?
So you know what? when I say this, you guys are gonna say, "Oh, dude, I expected it," but I always liked "Smile Now, Cry Later" by Send in the Sunlight.
Sonny Ozuna,
Yeah, and I love that, and it's still good. I think it came out like in 1963, but it became the theme barrio for all the barrio life. Smile Now, Cry Later. You know, there's consequences to what you do, and it's part of what I call even restorative justice is in there. Because listen, you know, if you're gonna do some hurt, you got to find a way to make it right. You got to find a way to have a acuerdos agreement with whoever you took from, wherever you, let's make an agreement to make this right. You don't have to put them in prison. You don't have to lock them down. You don't have to keep punishing them. You have to get them to restore themselves and who they are and their own idea of where they're aimed at. So moving in that direction with community being part of it. So that's what I think Smile Not Cry Later really means, because, you know, it just means there's everybody knows there's consequence to everything. I don't mean punishment. Punishment is not consequence. Consequences can include eating. You know. So anyway, I think we're getting close to the end, brother.
I think so, bro. I think so, man. And it's been a great journey with you, bro. Thank you. Thank you for spreading the word. Man. Lots of love, bro. Amen. Lots of love, man.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you all,
gracias everyone for showing up. And you will see me on the streets very soon with these books on my trunk.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, man. Bye, everybody.
We put the link that you could buy the book, so you can get 30% off till tomorrow. And we are having a book club of Pura Neta on October 26th. Join us for the discussion. Okay. And I got starstruck in the beginning. I apologize. Don't forget to take your census and don't forget to vote.
There you go.
So I am so honored. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Luis. I am so happy. And thank you, community, for being here. We love